In this video, we talk about sunshine mining and minting dated rounds. Welcome to Silver Bar Stacker, folks. I hope everybody's doing well and enjoying their day. Now today I wanted to go ahead and do a nice breakdown of a very, very particular subject that was brought up by our good friend Liberty Bleeds Silver. And the thing that Liberty Bleeds Silver brought up had to do with the sunshine mining dated rounds, and in some cases undated rounds. And I wanted to just take a little bit of a deep dive on some of the examples that I've been able to pick up. Now, when it comes down to the 1 ounce dated sunshine mining rounds, these are something that I do not go after when it comes down to, say, completing the date set. And the reason for that is because when you're a stack collector, or a mixture of a stacker and a collector, you really need to set some limitations when it comes down to, the budget that you're working with, the refiners that you kind of want to narrow down your scope of selection by. Some people kind of have an all hands approach where they say, hey, I'm going to go ahead and buy anything that fits any sort of criteria. So they kind of amass a huge variety of pieces, and that's one way to go about it. Other people are very, very focused stackers. They may exclusively stack one thing in particular and nothing but it. Let's say, for example, generic silver, right? Or a particular weight class, maybe just exclusively generic 10 ounce bars, for example. But when it comes down to sunshine mining, there's a vast amount of stuff that you can collect, and the dated rounds are just the beginning of the deep rabbit hole that you can go down. And so since we have been recently in the community been talking about these dated rounds, I thought I would go ahead and state some of the known information that I'm aware of at the current present time. Now, when I was going through my rounds, I actually learned a couple things that I wasn't really fully aware of, or actually that I forgot about. And so it'll be nice to give myself another refresher here as we go through the data rounds that I have been able to acquire. And another thing that I kind of brought into the picture here, because I haven't amassed a full completed 1 ounce date set, I thought I would kind of piggyback off some of the other things I've seen in this sort of series, I guess you could call it, the sunshine mining / minting series. When it comes down to the fractional rounds, I've seen some people amass a very, very large collection of fractional half-ounce rounds, and so I've also been able to do the same. In fact, in some cases I've been able to get more of the dated rounds in the half-ounce variety, because that's particularly something that I seek out, since it's something that you don't see as frequently as the 1 ounce. Okay, now, to my disbelief, I really did not realize how many fractional rounds they made across other years. Starting off early when I started collecting sunshine mining stuff, I came to realize that, hey, there's a couple proof sets that come in these nice blue binders that I'm aware of, and those only were produced early on in 1982 and 1983. And so there's a nice 7 ounce proof set where they have a nice 5 ounce round in there. It's an edition of 10,000 both years. And you also have some fractionals as well as a 1 ounce and this little serialized bar there that matches with the number here on the set. So these are very, very cool, but this is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes down to the deep rabbit hole you can go down, like I said, when it comes down to sunshine mining and many, many other refiners out there. So without further ado, let me go ahead and state some of the kind of, I would say, almost definitive information that I've kind of been able to find out as I've been amassing some of these sunshine mining pieces over the years. Right? So one of the things that I noticed is that the earliest version of a dated sunshine mining round, at least that I'm aware of, would be this very, very scarce and uncommonly seen, occurrence rate is very low on these, 1979 dated silver round. And this one you can see is looking very rustic, very old, and that makes total sense because this is the earliest, as far as I know, earliest dated round that sunshine mining made. This kind of gives you a similar feel to the actual 25,000 minted 1980 proof, right? So this one, I don't know what the established vintage is. I can say that the occurrence rate is much, much less on it. This is not serialized in any way, so that's why I cannot tell you definitive information. But when it comes down to this 1980 proof, I certainly can tell you a lot of definitive information about this, because right there on the rim of the round, 1,524 of 25,000. So we've got 25,000 of these in existence, and this is a pretty low serial number, all things considered. So very, very cool round. It's very cool because it's one of the only rounds that I know the established vintage of. It says it right there on the round, 25K. So pretty low mintage, all things considered, because everybody knows how expensive those Engelhard Prospector fractionals go for, and the quarter ounce is the rarest of them all, and that's because it's a 25K mintage round. Well, this one right here has gotten the established mintage of 25K as well, and so this is a pretty hefty premium round when it comes down to comparing with the other dated rounds, at least for the dated rounds from the 80s. Now, a lot of people have probably already seen some of the dated rounds from the 90s, and from my experience, those are going to be a lot less commonly seen, especially some of the years are very, very uncommonly seen. So, the few times I have seen 1990s dated rounds come on the market, well, at least certain dates, they sell at hefty premiums, and when I talk hefty premiums, I mean like $100 an ounce plus. Okay? Now, another interesting thing to note is that there were also some undated rounds. So they look exactly like this. They say Sunshine Silver on them in the front, but no date, and then they say Sunshine Mining on the back. So you can tell that these are vintage rounds because they are absent of that T in mining, right? If they say Sunshine Minting, as an example here, this you could say is a much more new round because minting is current, mining is vintage. That's a good way to distinguish it. And that's kind of a common thread when it comes down to this discussion of the dated rounds, because we do have these two variants here. And in fact, you will have the currently in production, probably, I believe with the security feature on the back, Sunshine Minting round, undated. Just like this is an undated, you also got a Sunshine Minting undated round. And that looks quite a bit different. And I don't actually have an example of that, but you can go check versions of that on various members of the community, such as Liberty Bleed Silver. So that's very interesting. We got undated rounds, and for my thoughts, I'm thinking that this undated Sunshine Mining round is probably going to be something that was a little bit more recent, because I've never really seen these in too poor of condition, so that leads me to believe that it's probably a little bit more new. And another interesting thing that I've came across is that there's also very, very scarce fractional versions of the undated Sunshine rounds. This one in the original seal, an actual 10th ounce round, and this one a half ounce. And take a look at this. This has a completely unique reverse here. Completely unique reverse. So this is an extremely scarce round, and I'm very, very happy to have an example of that too in the original seal. This as well, I've almost never seen this available. This one here is the only one I've ever seen. Let's just put it that way. So after the proof round, I should say, this is the 1979, this is the 1980, and then the design changed and became consistent throughout. So take a look here. I don't have a 1981, but there are 1981s out there. I may have even had one in the past, but I may have sold it. And one thing I can't tell you definitively about the 81, because I don't have any examples here, is that I do believe they probably were serialized, because just like this is serialized on the rim with an established mintage, these without the established mintage also have serialization on the rim. At least the 1982, I've never not seen this with a serial number there, and sometimes it'll have a different letter prefix, sometimes it'll just be numbers, but there's always some sort of a serial number reference there on the edge of a 1982 dated round. And look at the beautiful toning on this one. So the thing is 82, there's another deep rabbit hole you can go down. Just like the 1985 Engelhard Prospector or the 84 Engelhard Prospector types, there's a deep rabbit hole you can go down when it comes down to the 1982s, and I'm not going to get into that, but just enjoy the beautiful toning of this. Understand that there's always serialization on the 82s. Not sure about the 81s, if they're always serialized or sometimes serialized or never serialized, but if anybody knows about those and wants to chime in, that would be great. Now over here, we got a 1983 and a 1983, and this one also. 1983 was the last year I think that they put any sort of serialization on the rounds here, on the rim of the rounds. But the thing is sometimes in 1983 there's also rounds that have no serialization. So right here it's ribbed all along the entire edge of the round on this 1983. And so it's not always the case that an 83 is serialized. But from my experience, every single 82 I've ever seen has always had serialization on the rim for the 1 ounce. Okay? When it comes down to the 1982 half ounce, this actually right here is actually part of a proof set. And so this, you notice, doesn't have a ribbed edge all the way through, and where the ribbed edge stops, there's a serial number here, and that's going to be 2548 or something like that. And that's going to be associated with one of those proof sets that I showed you earlier. You notice the proofy nature of this half ounce round. Sometimes you'll find a 1982 without the proofiness, and in that case there won't be a serial number on it, it'll just have a ribbed edge throughout, similar to, let's say, this 1984. 1984s are never going to be proof variations, they're always going to be just normal, and they're always going to have no serial number along the edge, just a ribbed edge all throughout. So 82 and 83, you kind of got to look at the rim, because sometimes it'll be associated with the proof set, and that would be a proof, and sometimes they will not have any serialization. That would not be part of a proof set. Over here we've got a 1/4 ounce 82 and 83. These are also going to be part of proof sets, because I don't believe, maybe one day we'll come across a non-serialized 1/4 ounce 82 and 83, but from my knowledge, I believe the 1/4 ounces are always going to be coming from the proof sets. Okay. As we looked at the 84, we had the ribbed edge. I used to have a huge stock of 84 1-ounce rounds, some even in the original factory seal, but unfortunately, silly me, I sold every single last example, so I don't have any to show you, but I do have this beautiful, nicely toned 1984 1/2 ounce. Moving on to the 1985, look at this gorgeous toning in the original factory seal, 1985 1 ounce, and then over here a 1985 1/2 ounce, again, ribbed edge, no serial number. Moving on, we've got the 85 and the 86. Again, I used to have a big stack of 86s just like the 84s, and unfortunately, I silly me sold them all. But great news is that I've got a nice 1986 Sunshine Mining 1/2 ounce. So the Sunshine Mining 1/2 ounce seem to come up definitely more often than, let's say, like a 1/4 ounce or 1/10 ounce. Again, I used to have a 1987, but unfortunately I sold my 1987 1 ounce. But great news is I've got a 1987 1/2 ounce over here. So 1987 1/2 ounce, 1988 in the original seal with gorgeous toning for the 1 ounce as well as the 1/2 ounce. And what's interesting to note here is that I won't get into the bars, but you've got undated Sunshine Mining bars with the eagle design on it. They've actually got a feature of this undated coin right here, or I should say round, directly embedded right on the bar. It's a pretty cool design for a bar. But in addition to the undated bars, there's actually 1988 dated bars and the even more uncommonly seen 1989 dated bar. That's something to keep an eye out for if you ever find them. Those come up a lot less than the undated ones, not to mention the undated ones really don't pop up too often, and those will come in a similar factory seal such as these. So you got the 1988 1/2 ounce, 1988 1 ounce, 1989 1/2 ounce, and 1 ounce. Again, in the original factory seal for that 1 ounce. So very, very cool there. And over here, we've come to a mother lode. Something about 1990 is very, very odd. I know one of my good friends, AGAU Addict, he's a big fan of picking up Sunshine rounds whenever he sees them at the LCS. Gets them at a great price. And so it's a no-brainer, and he told me that he's come across more 1990s than any other date. And it's funny because I've actually come across some interesting things as it relates to the 1990 dated round, and this is one of them. But there are others. So I think 1990, for whatever reason, was a very special year for Sunshine Mining. I believe they had a lot of interesting things going on, as well as in some other select years as well. I know 1986, there's some interesting things outside of fractional and 1 ounce, and as well as, I believe, 1988 and 89, I've already talked about the bars, as well as some other things there are. So take a look at this. We got the 1990 1/2 ounce, and then the 1990 1/10 ounce. Once again, just like we had this one over here, the undated 1/10 ounce, for whatever reason, they've got a 1/10 ounce here with that same exact reverse type here for 1990. So 1990, for whatever reason, is a very special year, and you might find that it could be easier to come across pieces like this because perhaps they made them in larger numbers, at least for the common sizes like 1 ounce. Moving on, we start getting into the other 1990 dates. Now, unfortunately, the 1990s dates are highly sought after, and I had been able to in the past amass some examples, but unfortunately there are some very, very hardcore Sunshine Mining collectors here in the community, and so I kind of parted with some of these examples I had from the 1990s. But I do have some important examples here that I did keep with me that I am able to show with you, and some of these are very, very uncommonly seen. Now, the 1991, I believe you may have seen in some other videos here in the community, but take a look at this. I've got a 1/2 ounce as well as a 1 ounce to show you a nice little pair. I like having the pair always. So Sunshine Mining 1991. Unfortunately, I had some rounds there between 1991 and 1999, but again, I got rid of them. So just know that they're out there, and they're very, very tough to find, and sometimes they go for $100+ a round, because people, when they see them, they don't know if they're ever going to have a chance to buy one again. This one right here, though, let me tell you, the toning is gorgeous, and this is an extremely hard one to find. I've only ever come across this or seen this a couple times in my life, and I'm very, very happy to be able to have an example of it. A gorgeously toned 1999 Sunshine Mining silver, and this is actually going to be definitively I can say the second to last year that they made the dated rounds, because 2000 is going to be a very, very interesting year. Just kind of like that 1984 Engelhard Prospector, there's two different types. Here in 2000 you got the Sunshine 2000 Silver and you get the Millennium 2000 Silver Eagle. The one on the right is going to be your Sunshine Minting, and the one on your left is going to be Sunshine Mining. And so that's definitively when they made that switch over. You see a couple variances here in the design, sun here and no sun here. And so it's really, really interesting. There's a really interesting piece of history, because right here is when they kind of made that official change in the name, at least when it comes to their struck pieces. And this is where they ended it. So this is kind of the end of the dated run when it comes down to these traditional styled eagle designs. And you can kind of definitively also say that, 1979 is when they kicked things off. Where these undated ones fall into the picture, I'm not sure. But I hope you found this video very, very informative. And I hope you have a great day. Cheers. Oh, and if you haven't had a chance to yet, be sure to check out our social media landing page at solo.to/silverbarstacker. There you can find our direct website link, which is silverbarstacker.com, as well as our links to our other social media channels, such as this very YouTube channel, our Facebook page, our Instagram page, our TikTok page, our Twitter page, and we also have the link to our Whatnot page, which is where we actually run our live auctions and actually also have all of these same SBS drops that we hold. We run those same drops on our Whatnot store, and we also have live auctions happening literally all the time. So the way that you can be notified about those auctions is to be following us there on whatnot.com/user/silverbarstacker. And we hope to see you there, folks. Thank you, and have a great day.